Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I am Ken Walls and I'm your host, and I'm fired up today. I got a good friend of mine, a good buddy on the show. His name is Jack Branch. I want to go ahead and welcome Jack to the show. Jack, thank you for being on, man.
You're welcome, Ken. I'm excited to be with you today.
Dude, you're a busy guy. There's been times when I've tried to catch you on the phone, and you're a busy dude, man. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a crazy schedule. So as you already know, I created this show to help people get unstuck in life, and I truly believe that everybody gets stuck, and a lot of people stay stuck, right? And
Yeah.
I know you've had your challenges in life for sure. And I'm excited for you to share how you overcame that stuff with everybody. So first let's start with where you were born and raised.
I actually was born, believe it or not, in a little town outside of D.C. called Elkton, Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Dad was a career Navy guy and worked at the Pentagon, and so he would commute there to Maryland from D.C. as he was working in the war room and such back before in the Vietnam time frame and after.
Yeah. Wow, my little brother was a Navy guy for 10 years.
I think my dad was in for 30.
Wow.
And yeah, so we grew up there. I mean, I was a baby, and what's interesting is my mother had 9 miscarriages between my sister and I.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so just the mere fact that I'm even talking to you is pretty much a miracle. And I look back at my life and think of how diligent this woman was at, continuing on after losing 9 babies. And, it really, makes me pinch myself a lot to think, all right, God, what are you doing with me?
Wow, man.
What's thinking of that? So.
Yeah, that is a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle that anybody's born, but it's a real miracle that you're here. Holy moly.
It really is. And then my dad, shortly after that, got moved out of the D.C. area to a little island off the coast of Portugal called the Azores. And his job there was to run the golf course, a real tough assignment.
Yeah.
I got pictures of him where Air Force One would fly over and Nixon and them would get off to play around the golf, and my dad with him in the pro shop. So my dad was, I guess the week after veterans, just a great man who served this country, and, hard ass early on in his life with that military background. But later in life, he really opened up and softened up and showed his true side. So it was good to see a man that was, bound up in many ways, open up and find freedom before he did leave this earth.
Wow. So he's passed away.
Yeah, about 15 years ago he passed. It was about this time of the year, really. It always brings back a lot of memories that he thought he came down with the flu and went in and they took a look and they said, well, your spleen's enlarged, and 45 days later he was dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, came down with leukemia, and it really blew me away how quick somebody could go from looking fine to just being gone, And
Wow.
my mother was very lonely the last 15, 17 years since he's passed. It was a long road, and those two were like,
Wow.
2 people that were just dependent on one another and loved each other deeply.
Wow, man. Wow. So is your mother still alive?
No, my mom actually passed 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
It was tough watching her go through life without my father was kind of a lost sheep. She was very gregarious, fun-loving, witty, but really you could tell was just kind of tossed at sea. And that generation really didn't want to get a lot of help, but she she was really depressed and didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Even though I suggested that maybe she did get some help. But my mom and dad were great. We were a close-knit family.
Wow.
And looking back, they were always there, even when a lot of other people weren't.
One of my personal observations about you is just how, and I think just by, I forget who said it, the windows or the eyes are the window to the soul. And, just talking with you, and you and I have, sat down and met with each other on a couple of different occasions, and I've been able to look at you eyeball to eyeball, and you're just a good-hearted person. Like, you just are a good dude, and it probably comes from that.
Well, it came from a lot of pain too. Early on, I was a young kid that kind of would use humor and comedy to deflect and build myself up for a lack of or more of insecurity, and I've kind of used that humor early on in that way. But I've come a long way, and I give him the credit, because really he's the reason that I've become the man I'm becoming.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. So you grew up in Maryland, though.
I was just born there, and then shortly after, I spoke Portuguese before I spoke English. So when we lived in the Azores, my father was running the base and the whole operation there. My mother was working in the Social Security Department, and I was really raised by a maid, Paulina. And Paulina was a Portuguese maid that would kind of tend to the house, and she really taught me a lot as a little kid, because mom and dad were going in a myriad of directions.
Wow, man. Wow. So you grew up almost royalty.
Yeah, royalty and Azor standard. I mean, we didn't have a lot, but we thought we had it all, I guess you could say.
Wow. So hold on. You were born in Maryland, and you ended up, and it's called Azor?
Azor, yeah, Lodges Field. Actually, before they were able to have planes that could fly across without any problem, they would stop there. Air Force One and many people would stop there to refuel to get on to Europe. So it's about a few hundred miles west of Portugal. Just an island chain out there, very agriculture. Remember oxen running through the streets and with carts, and have some pretty interesting pictures of my mother with a beehive and my dad thinking he was the king man with his Navy persona.
And you walking around with the maid.
Yeah, I remember one of the funniest stories is my dad being a military guy. Over there, they just kind of did whatever and would use the bathroom wherever. So in front of the base where we lived, I was out using the bathroom, and my dad came home, and if you could see the look on his face, he was like, "What are you doing?" He didn't care too much for the maid allowing me to use the bathroom in the front yard of the base building.
Oh my gosh. So okay, so I'm Azor. Azor, am I saying that right?
Azores. Yep.
Okay. So how long were you there? Till what age?
About the age of 4, 5, and then my father retired out of the Navy, and my mother was originally from Tennessee, so he'd always had a desire to get back to the United States, specifically Tennessee, to retire, if you will.
Yeah.
And no one in his family had ever been to college, so it was his motive as an enlisted man with about 30 years in the Navy. That was his career, to go back to school. So at 48, he became a freshman at the Tennessee Tech University, which is in Cookeville, Tennessee, while he was running a charcoal plant full time. So he retired running a charcoal plant and ended up called Hickory Specialties, which still exists. I think probably Kingsford bought it and rebranded it, but he would work full time as managing the plant and full time student as well.
Now, this is after he retired from the Navy?
Yes.
After 30 years in the Navy, he's running a charcoal plant and goes to college.
Yeah, because no one had. He grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, a little town called Girard, which
Shut
is
up. That's where my wife's from.
Yeah, Erie, PA, and it's a little town. And he was like, my dad was the class superstar basketball. I mean, real good looking fella. I mean, just But it was interesting because his father worked in the steel and made true temper shafts for golf clubs. And my father had always said growing up that his parents never said, I love you. So big family, Northeast, but really not a lot of, camaraderie or real emotion showed, so you could tell as a growing man, and even in his 40s, he still had that void, as a grown man that was longing to hear, hey, I love you, I'm proud of you. And they really didn't communicate that too well,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sucks. So, but he's from Girard.
Girard, yeah.
My wife is from Erie, PA. So between where we live and Erie, it's about a 4.5 hour drive. And we stopped in Girard on the way up to, she grew up like 2 blocks from the lake, right? So like their house was always buried in snow. But
always.
Yeah, but there's a pizza place, I think it's in Girard, that we stopped at that's like a world famous little hole in the wall pizza joint in Girard that they talk about it all the time, my wife and her brother, the pizza in Girard. That's crazy, man. What a small world. And we've known each other all this time and I didn't even know that.
Right. That's right. Good question to ask to get deeper. I love it.
Yeah, this is awesome. So you so about you said 4 or 5 you moved to Tennessee.
Yeah, we moved there. My father went back to school really more as an accomplishment for himself to be the first kid that actually went to college in his family. And so he got a business degree and still ran the charcoal factory. Then after he got out of there, he went to work in a family business with my Uncle Bob that did a truck driving leasing entity. So the logistics people that didn't want to own the staff, they would supply drivers for these entities and their trucks to more like a headhunter for truck drivers.
Wow.
So yeah, he ran that up in the day he passed. So he retired from the military and then ran this company called Rent-A-Driver with my uncle for many years.
Wow, that's incredible, man. So he was an overachiever for sure.
He was, and he was definitely that Navy background, everything, making your bed, keeping things honored, duty, respect, hard work. You tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it.
Yeah.
That was a very good lesson, traits that he shared with me that I've tried to carry on as a man.
Yeah. Well, I'd say from what I know about you, you're doing it, but, so you grew up, is that where you learned English?
Yes.
In Tennessee?
I learned it in the Azores too, but I can remember tu loco de cabeza. My maid would tell me, that means you're crazy in the head. But when we moved, it was interesting. We moved to Cookeville. Paulina came to Canada and had identified with me as quote unquote being her child and called my mother and said, look, I'm coming to get my son, Jack. And my mother, probably was like, what are you talking about?
What?
So she had, I guess, thought because she was early on in my years and we had some affinity and she had raised me somewhat with my parents that I was hers. And my mother reminded her that no, she wasn't.
Oh my Lord, have mercy. So, wow, that's insane. You got a crazy Portuguese woman chasing you around the planet. That's funny.
My mother Jean wasn't going to have that. Make that happen. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'll bet. So you grew up in Tennessee then.
Yep.
That's where you went to school and high school and all that?
My formative years, we lived in Cookeville, which is right outside of Nashville, about an hour and a half, where Tennessee Tech was, and then we moved to Nashville after my dad left the charcoal business in the truck driving leasing entity, and really lived there most of my life. Actually, a little suburb called Mount Juliet, which I just went to my reunion, my 30th reunion, and it was a great place to be brought up. Good values. Mom and Dad were always working, kind of was that kid that, as a lot of us were, where both parents started to work just to keep up. And Both of them very hardworking. My mother worked for Social Security for 35 years, and my dad, had many careers, as you can
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, yeah. So you graduated from high school in a suburb of Nashville. By the way, Nashville is one of my favorite cities. I don't know if I told you that or not, but I
No,
love
so,
Nashville.
I mean, it's amazing. Every time I go back home, as I just did, it's to see the city that was dilapidated and falling apart to now thriving. It
Yeah,
kind of is a story of our own life, if you will, right? We can all feel like we're in ruins at times, but
yeah.
we can be put back together if we allow ourselves to.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. So you did you go to college?
I did. I went to the University of Tennessee. The volunteers.
Oh, did you?
It was interesting. A girl, my first love, actually in high school. Really, it was her dad. His name was Sonny Cruz. I mean, what kind of a name is that, right? Sonny Cruz. It wasn't Sunny. It was Sonny. And
Wow.
Sonny had a company he worked for called Thomas Nelson that would take kids during the summertime to sell Bibles and educational books door to door. And I'd watch these kids as they did it. A lot of people are familiar with the Southwestern Company. They've been doing it for 100 years, where students during the summertime would earn enough money to pay their way through school. So I recall telling Sonny, all right, yeah, I'm dating your daughter. And he goes, we begging. And he would talk like that. Go, begging. He goes, you got to get out and develop some skills. And even though I was somewhat of a gregarious guy, I was very intimidated, shy, and he knew that going to do that would really change my life. And so I told him, I said, all right, Sonny, I'll go do it. So I recall graduating from high school and all my friends were going to Florida. And he goes, well, we're going away for the summer, right? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And I almost backed out. But my dad, being a Navy guy, is like, you can't back out. You've given this guy your commitment.
Right.
And counting on you, so you got to go do it. So I recall here I was going to go sell books door to door in Mississippi. And at that time, Mississippi was the poorest state that in the country. And they were sending me to the poorest county. So effectively, they were sending me to the poorest county in the United States. And Sonny was telling me, oh, I handpicked this territory for you, Biggin. It's going to be great. I'm like, you got to be kidding. The first door that I knocked on was a person that was picking cotton, the family. And I knocked on their door. And literally, this was in 1988. They didn't have floors. It was dirt.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
And what I learned that summer was I learned that there was a lot of people, that didn't have a lot that had it all. And then you'd meet the other people on the other side of the tracks at a country club that looked like they had it all that didn't have anything. And
Yeah.
yeah, I did, 6 summers all through college. I mean, paid my way through school. And I recall, just the proudness in my father, seeing that I could get out and work and do stuff. And I mean, I paid for college and still had 80 grand in the bank.
And what were you selling door to door?
Bibles and 2 books that would help parents, also help kids with their homework. So, it wasn't
Wow.
encyclopedias, but it was 2 handbooks that would help parents and kids know the basic rules for math, science, English, all that good stuff. So
Oh my gosh.
I took a kid. I remember I didn't actually recruit him, but there was one kid that his parents said, "You're not going to do that. That sounds like some cult or something." And he ended up making like 60 grand, not gross, but saved.
Ah,
And later on went into angel financing, work with eBay. So it's amazing what that job really in the summer did. Because when I got out of college, people weren't like, all right, let me look at your GPA. They're like, you went away for the summer and sold books door to door for 80 hours a week. Let's talk more about that. And so that
yeah.
became kind of the thing that folks would want to talk about as I got out of the University of Tennessee and graduated. I had a lot of fun there, but they all want to talk about the book selling because they were like, if you can do that, you can pretty much do anything.
Anything, dude. I've said that. I've said that so many times. Like, I think that instead of sending kids directly to college, we need to send them out door to door for a couple of years. Because your education level goes through the freaking roof when you're.
And I know you've interviewed Zig's family, and man,
Yeah.
listening to his stuff in my car,
Yeah.
it was amazing. And and if you looked at there was one kid I recall that a lot of people give me a hard time with this, but there was a kid picking cotton all summer who loved this book and the concept and wanted to get out of poverty, and he saved his money all summer. And I brought that book back, and he paid for it out of his heart. And a lot of people go, man, what are you doing, taking advantage of the poor? I go, no, I'm giving this guy a chance through education to break out of the poverty cycle. And I later got a note from him. I think I was in Oklahoma at the time when I got out of school, just talking about how he had done well because we kept in touch. This was way before social media. And he attributes that book as kind of being a catalyst in him taking his education serious and going on to medical school and such. So interesting stuff.
Wow, that's crazy, man. So you and you graduated with a degree in what?
I got a degree initially. I thought I was going to be in biochemistry. After the first organic chemistry and some of this calculus, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Actually, when I took the ACT, the first time I studied, I did horrible. And then I ended up going to a party, and having a big time and didn't study. And I made a crazy grade. Actually got an academic scholarship.
Oh my God.
Soon lost the first year into school because I was having too much fun in Knoxville versus hitting the books.
Right.
So I got a degree actually in marketing and urban planning because I thought I wanted to go into studying the cities and helping cities prosper and grow more on the design and infrastructure. But after selling books, I knew that that was going to be a short-lived career.
Yeah.
And I really needed to go into sales and marketing because I love people.
Yeah, yeah. Getting into sales will ruin you.
Yeah, and a lot of people go, "You're a natural sales guy."
Yeah.
And I never believed that because I think you're developed, and I credit a lot of it to Zig because of the principles he taught. I remember him talking about that cookware and his good looking little redhead. I mean, I could probably recite most of the tapes because I was listening to in my little Honda hatchback that was dust laden from all the dirt roads I was driving down.
Wow. Walking into homes with dirt floors.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Wow. So you didn't do what you didn't end up doing the career that your college degree laid out for you. But while you were going to college getting that degree, you got a life degree.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that was in selling. So and this is all in Mississippi, but you're going back and forth, like back to Tennessee.
Yeah, that was just for the summer. So
right.
all year I would go to school, and then my friends would typically work during school. I wouldn't. I'd come home and I'd bring this big check, and that's what they'd say, building that big check, because you wouldn't get a payment. You just keep what you needed to live off, send the rest to the company, and in the end they'd give you this big check. So I'd come to the fraternity house and blow up these checks of like 8,000, 20,000, 25,000 and show them. And meanwhile, they were drinking Milwaukee's Best, and I was having Heineken. It was kind of funny back in the day.
Jack was rolling in college. I love it.
They're rolling, man. Yeah. They were giving plasma, to maintain by smokes and beer money, and I was that big check.
Right.
So each summer I would go somewhere different. I sold Oklahoma, Mississippi twice, North Carolina, Indiana, and then the hardest summer was in the suburbs of Atlanta, where I was knocking very wealthy houses, and you can tell who was home, who wasn't home. A little different than rural America, but it was all a learning experience. Met some great people, still lifelong friends. We still connect, and I mean, we could pick back up, just going back to our memories, just like it was yesterday.
You think you could still sell Bibles door to door?
I don't know. I mean, I know I could, but I don't know if I'll put it any longer. I don't miss those days.
Yeah.
of some of the stuff people would say. And even today, I can't even imagine getting, and they're still doing it though. I just don't know how effective it is with educational books, with the internet and Google and all these things. Life has changed quite a bit, but they're still doing it.
So you and I see. I didn't know all this about you. I had no idea, man. And that's what I love about this show. So you like. I don't know how to say this, but I've been out there and banged on tens of thousands of doors, in residentially and in business to business. And in fact, that's how a buddy of mine handed me $20 to start this company that I have now. And I went out the first day and banged on doors. It took me about 7 hours of no's before I got to a yes. But that's kind of the way it works. And that's the way it works no matter what you're doing, right?
Yeah, no matter what career. It's and I learned that it wasn't really a rejection, it was refusal.
Right.
And, rejections, if you've got your bride, you're walking down the aisle, all your friends and family are there, and she goes to the stage and she says, I don't.
Right.
Rejection. Refusal means they just don't have enough information or facts to really know what it is you can do for them. And so they automatically throw up this objection to say,
Yeah. Well, I've been blessed with the opportunity to have you as a client of mine, and I was able to work on some video stuff for you of what clients have said, just some stuff that they put out about you. And as I was going through and editing your videos, like, these people that you work with genuinely love you, and they genuinely know that you love them and that you've got their back no matter what. And so I don't think that you are really in sales. I think you are personally in the people business because you really truly care about other people.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, even though I've done a lot of different things in sales from a standpoint out of school, did the litigation game and then got into heavy equipment with a company called Troy Built, selling rototillers to dealers, and then selling technology with a company at Omega that was like at the beginning of all the technology boom, and to now, settling into really helping people plan out their fortunes and chase this elusive concept called financial independence. It's really relational, it really is.
So you were in Tennessee, you were in, let's just say, Nashville, so people understand the general area, but so you were in Nashville, you went to college, and that's in Knoxville, you said?
Over near North Carolina, yes.
Okay. And then after college, you
got a job with some bookmen or bookwomen that were selling litigation photocopying service. Not photocopiers, but they would call on the lawyers and they would call on paralegals that would bury one another in paper. So my friend, he was only 22 and he was making like $500 grand a year at 22. I'm like, whatever you're doing, man, sign me up. I was like, so I got interviewed with a company called Knight Rider. That's all they did was they worked for, you call on these law firms and develop relationships to help produce these records in these heavy document intensive cases. And then went on to do some automation court stuff where we worked with the guys with OJ that did that and produced it's about a $200 million lawsuit, a defamation case where we were producing all this stuff. And I mean, we were 20 something years old, had no real idea, and they were putting all their trust in a couple 20-something-year-olds to pull this off. And,
wow.
And we were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Oral Roberts University. There's these big hands, these praying hands that are like two or three stories high. And we were in this high rise 24/7, 7 days a week producing all these documents. So after that, I left that and we went to find ourselves in the mountains of Colorado to ski because these guys ripped us off and we were kind of disgruntled. And that's how I ended up in New Orleans the first time was some ladies I met, Kay and Connie, met at a conference in this automation courtroom stuff. And they said, come to New Orleans. So I flew down to see them and they were charming and, you know, that's how I got here. I moved to New Orleans and and met Kay and Connie, worked for them. It was a year and a half, actually, where I met my my daughter's mother. She was a paralegal, and Cynthia and I clicked real good. She told me I was the type of guy that she'd like to go camping with. Little did I know her idea of camping was the Four Seasons.
Oh.
But she and I dated afar and moved from here in New Orleans, got out of the litigation business, and then got hired by a company, Black & Decker, in the hardware business, calling on Home Depot. So they moved me to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was responsible for North Carolina and South Carolina, developing relationships with all the stores when Home Depot was just blossoming. And then they talked me into moving to California. So they said, y'all you're good at sales. Y'all look at this marketing stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm mobile, I'm easy. And so I moved from Charlotte to Irvine, California, and loved it. Really loved it. But the thing is, it wasn't a huge pay increase. And they talked, and they said, sack of groceries in Charlotte, sack of groceries in California, about the same. No way. It was ridiculous how expensive it was.
Wow, it's crazy out there, isn't it?
Beautiful, but I don't think I'd ever live there. It's just so doggone expensive. And being dating long distance, Cynthia ended up going on to law school, and it was easier for me to see that the writing on the wall wasn't good in California. So I ended up moving back here because she was established in the legal community, and we started our life together and began starting a family. She was a great lawyer. Driving back, had all my stuff in a U-Haul and my 4Runner on the back, and people were trying to interview me, and I'm like, dude, let me get to there first.
Yeah, right. So, and how many kids do you have?
Just one. Her and I struggled. We went through a lot of challenges with the fertility game. We got married later in life, and really went through a lot of ups and downs and disappointments associated with that. And we just came to the decision that wasn't going to happen biologically. So we started investigating adoption. And Cynthia is half Guatemalan. So versus us bringing in a Russian kid that would look weird with us, we started looking into Guatemala and about adopting there. And it was very interesting process because a lot of ups and downs, disappointments. But man, once they send you a picture of this baby and they say, do you want her? And she's holding a little, stuffed animal, and you're like, yeah, I mean, how could you say no?
Right.
And that's really when my life changed, Kim. Well, not really then, but that's really when I kind of moved out of the selfish mantra, and really, it took me a little longer. I mean, even though I was a doer and a achiever, I was still quite lost. I was chasing the world's dream and not God's dream for Jack's life. And Cynthia and I were married for 13 years, and I wasn't a great husband, quite frankly. I was pretty absent, pretty lazy, pretty lethargic, but she just kind of got to a point where it was over with and asked me to leave. And it was interesting. The night that she asked me to leave, I drank almost a fifth of Jack Daniels, was very inebriated. And I'd kind of come to the agreement that my life was kind of not worth living.
Oh, wow.
And I drove from my suburb and was on this 26-mile bridge to basically take my life.
Wow.
And at 30 in the morning, my phone rings and my mother says, "Are you okay? The Holy Spirit woke me up."
Wow.
And I go, "No, I'm not okay. You don't know what my life's like. It's a mess. It's filled with a lot of things that I don't even really care to go into on this show. Just a lot of dead ends, a lot of self-medication, a lot of trying to put things in that were just empty,
Right.
And so, that's really when my life began, Ken.
Wow.
Even though, I started having a lot of guys come around me and showing up, and it was just amazing watch, how I would see God orchestrate guys really caring more about me than my money or me providing whatever for them.
So how old were you? And
Or
what time was it? 2:30 in the morning?
3:30 in the morning. What you
3:30.
what's the probability of my mother not knowing what was going on between Cynthia and I, and then not knowing that I'd consumed a whole fifth of Jack Daniels, and even to be behind the wheel driving to get off that Mississippi River Bridge that we spoke about
Yeah.
and park my Mercedes and jump off. It looked like I had it all from the world's perspective: money, big cars,
Yeah.
white picket fence. But inside, I was dead.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and it really began. So that's why, when I see guys checking out, I see guys getting taken out in my community, it really bothers me because I could have been one of those casualties.
So 3:30 in the morning, your mother calls you. How old were you?
I was 39, 40 years old. Yeah.
Wow. And that's when your life changed. Not in that moment, obviously, but it was the catalyst.
Oh, it was. I'm like, how could, I'm like, if God really exists, let me explore that. I mean, I was in the church. I mean, I was an elder in the church. You wouldn't know it by my life that I was leading outside of my false Jack persona, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Just poser. But, it really began at that moment because I'm like, wow, how, it became more real, the mere fact that he provided a way, instead of letting me listen to the lies, checking out. My mother was obedient and called, and she
Wow.
said, look, house is open, come, don't go do that. You have a daughter, that's very, important. She needs a dad. And, I'm like, yeah. And so I just started pressing in, doing a lot of work on me, Ken. Did probably 5-6 years of real intensive therapy, connecting the dots between
Yeah.
when I was a young man, and it really began to see the picture.
Wow, man. Wow. That's intense. So, at what point did you get into what you do now? Because I know you own Branch Wealth Strategies.
Yeah, I got it. And I downsized from corporate America at 30. Was making a gazillion amount of money. Calling on Best Buy, was our customer, and we were doing a ton of business with them. And,
yeah.
And then the guy came over from Palm Pilot, and he was a real arrogant guy from Mountain View, and they wanted like 60 grand to mark down some inventory. And he goes, "You tell it to shove it up there, beep." And I'm like, "I don't think that's a thing for Midwesterners. I think you might want to restructure your approach." And he goes, "No, we're I Omega, blah blah blah, all this pride." And I go, "I tell you, they're going to cut us," and they cut us from like a couple $100 million to $6 million instantly.
Oh man.
Because of his ego. And so I was the guy that took the fall, and I said, at 30, I'm never getting into this situation again where I have a company or an entity or some Yahoo control my destiny. And so I'd had a lot of people tell me, you should get in the financial business. You're good with it. You've given us a lot of tips on investments and all. So why do you look at it? And I'm like, I can't imagine going to a straight commission role after having big cushy salaries and expense accounts for all these years, but let me give it a try. And so the first 2 years were miserable.
Wow.
But what I realized is I didn't want to work. I got in, worked for a company for 2 years, and I found myself kind of back in that corporate umbrella, if you will, and left them right after Katrina when it devastated New Orleans so much, not knowing what I was going to do, and hung my own shingle. But I realized that, a lot of the advice and work I was doing was beyond what I was getting compensated on. I had 4 clients that got over $1 million in flood insurance.
Wow.
When they had no excess flood. Most agents down here didn't advise them. So it became real.
Most agents are not telling people down there that they should have flood insurance.
Well, not, full replacement value. Most of it in FEMA is about $250 is the max.
Yeah.
So if you have a house worth more than $250, most people weren't insuring them for full economic replacement. So it was just stuff in my process and model. If you insure something, insure it for what it's worth, whether it's a house, whether it's you, whether it's, a car.
And I recently, what was it, about 2 months ago, I was down there in New Orleans for a whole day with you, and you were gracious enough to drive me around. We won't talk about your driving. And that big truck, man. I mean, y'all, Jack has a big old truck. Like, seriously, go watch the Dukes of Hazzard movie or something, and that like, you'll see Jack's truck in there. I'm just kidding. But you got it's a beautiful truck too, man. But I can't even talk about that. That was so much fun.
In and out of these little places, Ken's white knuckle. He's like, "What the heck? Am I going to live?" He's like trying to update his beneficiaries and such in between.
It was a lot of fun, but you were gracious enough to take me around New Orleans and show me, like, you showed me some of the areas that were devastated, and dude, it's crazy what happened down there. So,
It's still that's in some areas. It's interesting. It's been 15 years later, and some parts haven't come back. But all in all, New Orleans has come back well beyond where it ever was. So come here, bring your significant other, enjoy the tourism, part of the city. A lot of history here, and a lot of good stuff, but a lot of stuff that you got to be careful with too. Certain people do.
Yeah, yeah. I felt in an odd way, I felt pretty safe hanging out with old Jack down there. So, well, most of the time. But I'm just teasing. So, let me ask you this, because, and dude, you have an incredible story. I mean, absolutely incredible story. And there's not enough time, obviously, in 1 hour for us to cover everything. But I do want to ask you this. I want to ask you your opinion about what, you've come across a lot of people, especially with what you do in the financial services world. I mean, you have come across, my brother just said, great golf courses down there.
You can tell his mind is.
Oh, it's always playing golf, man. But he's in insurance too. He wants to connect with you and meet you, or at least talk on the phone.
Yeah.
But what is it in all the people you've come across over the years? What do you think the number one thing is that keeps people stuck in life and not able to move past all the BS and all the stuff that holds them back from happiness and financial freedom? Because look, let's be honest. It's like Zig used to say, folks, money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's important. Like, you got to have money to survive on this planet and do well. So, but besides that part of it, what do you think is the number one thing that keeps people stuck in life?
Well, I think in the financial realm, it's just getting bad advice. The whole system set up to trick people into doing exactly what the system wants you to do. So it's not critical thinking. It's not thinking outside the box. It's listen to the same old advice, and that transcends into our personal lives, where there's a lot of experts out there that kind of give you the mantra that more money is always going to equal fulfillment. And again, I've seen a lot of people with a lot of money that don't have anything, and a lot of people that have very little money that have it all. So there's a good friend of mine right now that's mentoring me that's selling his company for almost $200 million, and he's giving it all away.
Wow.
And, the only thing I can ask through this relationship is, all right, God, what are you trying to teach me about me? Wow. And I think what you're trying to teach me about me is to not let money have me. It's like when you think that if you get this, then you're going to be better. You're really not. The only way you're going to be better is to have great relationship, have a bigger dependence on God, who provides it all. And then really, quit worrying so much. We all worry that, just constantly, and we got to retire. We got to do this. We got to do. So it's all these things that we're being bombarded with, and no one really slows down to enjoy the now. And that's been in my life too. I've always said, if I just make this, I'll be happier. If I just do this, I'll be happier. And it just leaves you hungrier and hungrier for what's most important. And I think it's deeper relationships. I think it's intimacy with your significant other, or intimacy with the creator of the universe, and really knowing how that transcends everything. And I'm learning that. I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, even though I didn't maybe start the race really good, I'm going to finish it like the guy from Jamaica, was his name, Usain Bolt or whatever. I want to finish really strong this last part of my life by, being really good to people and not being in such a hurry that I really can't listen.
Right.
And I can't take time, and don't have a lot of motives. Got to check my motives. Why am I truly doing something? Is it? And so, a lot's changed in the last year. After coming off 2 of the best years ever, I've really taken this year to really make sure that I'm dialed in and really making some action on my health. And so I think it's a myriad of things. People just don't know what they don't know, and they're listening to bad voices, and then they're really not relationally deep. They're just surface level, like sports and weather and things like that, versus having the audacity to say, hey, Ken, what's really going on in your life? I really want to know. Or, hey, Jack, how you doing with this, that, or the other? Yeah. We want accountability. We desperately seek it, but it takes risk, because if I open myself up, as I just did with sharing this story, a lot of people don't even know the story that I shared with you.
Yeah.
About being at the end of my rope.
Yeah.
And now God's using that exact darkness in my life to be the pulpit that I speak to other people on, because I went through it. So the mere fact, I think, in essence, is the things you struggle with end up being the pulpit that you are so proficiently good at, but you have to share it with others. Otherwise, it just stays unused.
Man, people are afraid to be vulnerable, aren't they?
Yeah,
and authentic.
Yeah. And, looking at my dad was a very disciplined, hard man early on in his life. But I used to watch my dad. He never was big into church because all the politics. But I'd always see my dad with his Bible at night reading it. And I remember when I drove his car off of a bridge, sneaking out to go see my love in high school. And I ran it off, and I called him, and I said, he goes, where are you, son? I go, well, I just wrecked your dream car into the ditch, and, I'm running away. And
God.
He goes, are you okay? And I go, well, I am until you see me, because I know you're going to kill me. It was really evident by seeing him change. I watched him as I wrecked his dream car from a middle-class guy that never had a lot. And so when and to seeing him really soften, care about me. And even when I sold those books, I agreed to give him the money that I made, the $8,000 my first summer, and 8 weeks of work, through high school. And he didn't do it. He just cried and said, no, I'm proud of you, son. And wow. I think that's what we're all looking for, is somebody to really do life intimately with, whether it's business, whether it's relationally,
Wow.
And through some stuff with Renee. I mean, I really attribute all the stuff that I'm going through as a gain. I'm not looking at it as anything else other than that. And she's not complaining going through cancer one iota. And I've been complaining quite often. And yet God still has a way of saying, all right, Jack, I'm going to bring you a little further. I'm going to take you a little deeper. Come on, let's walk along. So
wow.
I'm not perfect by any means, Ken, but I'm just a broken man trying to learn how to really live life vulnerably, as you said.
Wow, dude, you're saying things right now that are blowing my mind. So, I love that about you, because you and I, we developed a relationship a year and a half or so ago, and really connected, and we've had some really, really deep conversations, and I know that about you, that you are just genuinely a good person, and you genuinely do care. I mean, you've called me.
Want to go deep. If they say, how you doing? A lot of people don't really want to go deep. And
right.
I think depth is where you get to a person's soul and their heart and all that makes them who they are, and find out those things that we all don't have it together. When we admit we don't have it together and we need help, that's really where freedom comes, and I just want to be free in all aspects of my life. I want to show other people how to get free. I just think the financial business is a means to the end. The health coaching is also an integral part of helping people get unstuck health-wise. And I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't gone through it. So I'm interested to see what's unfolding because I don't know. And that's kind of a good place to be,
And you've lost a bunch of weight too. Like you've lost a bunch.
Yeah, about 50 pounds, kept it off, stopped smoking, smoked for 30 years and, have learned there's no shortcuts. You got to have people that teach you the habits.
Yeah.
Just like you've learned the habits to get us stuck to where we're stuck. So love that part of the business. Love I've got 32 people right now I'm personally coaching and it's amazing.
Yeah.
When you see people that, getting free little by little. And so the challenge I have on the financial sense is people are pretty much on this hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Where they make enough to keep them on that hamster wheel and they don't think critically and they don't want new information. They just want to listen to the mass marketing that's out there. And even people in my space that are doing what's called really good advice are really screwed up because they're conditioned from Wall Street or the insurance companies to do exactly what they want you to do. So it's real hard. I've used a lot. I travel a lot. I've used outside mentorship and growth forums to really make sure I'm not listening to the entities,
right,
but listening to the principles that really govern getting people to that freedom place.
And I know this about you as well. You invest a lot of money and a lot of time in your own personal development to grow. I know you've hired very, very, very pricey coaches personally. I know you've been to many seminars and you're always learning and growing, and that's one of the things I respect the most about you because I'm like that too. And
and I think the real key, the principle that Jesus taught about don't look at the speck in other people's eye versus removing the plank from your own, the log. That is where most people get stuck. They always want to point the blame game and look at others versus, all right, what are you trying to teach me, God, about me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Through this anxiousness, through this anger, through this hard time, what are you trying to teach me about me?
Love that, man. I love that. So
if we ask that question
and
you want the answer, you're going to find it.
Yep.
I mean, most people won't ask that question.
Yeah, you're right. And it's clearly stated, man, that seek and ye shall find. I mean, if you really, truly, in your heart, are seeking the answers, it will be revealed. You may not like it.
Right.
You may not like it. It may require you to do some work on yourself, but you'll find the answers if you're really looking for them. So let me ask you, I ask everybody, I can't even believe this, man. This hour goes by so fast. Yeah. So I ask every guest that I have on the show this question. Well, first, let me ask you, how can everybody follow you?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at LA Captain Jack. They can follow me on Facebook, Jack Branch, also Branch Wealth Strategies. And that's pretty much it. I live my life out loud. I try to, I'm always cutting videos in my car. Ken's helping me, do it more professional, such as this environment. And I'm excited about the show that he's inspired me to do and some updated work that he's doing for me on my website. So, www.branchwealthstrategies.com. You can see it behind here.
Yeah.
Really, if you really want authenticity and you want people that are going to live life real, that's me.
That's you. For sure. I 1,000% can attest to that. So this is a perfect segue actually to the final question. And I'm going to tell everybody here, speaking of being authentic and real, I've actually called Jack and asked this question because I was going through some of this. And that is, if somebody called you up and said, man, my electric's being shut off tomorrow, my car was repossessed last week, my entire life is falling apart and I don't know what to do, things are just going bad for me, man, and what is the first thing that you would say? And obviously it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, here's some money. But what would you say to that person to help get them unstuck mentally, to help them get over that hump? Because you and I both know that it all originates right there. It all starts right there. If you're stuck, it's there. But what would you tell that person? And I haven't called and said, "Hey, my lights are getting shut off" or any of that. But I've called and I called you at one point, not too well. It was a while back now, but dude, shit was hitting the fan. And it was not cool. And you really helped me. You talked me through a lot of that stuff. But what would you say to that person if they called you up?
Well, I think really you have to put it in perspective and look at not what you don't have, but what do you have? And so often we get caught up in the mindset of scarcity or, yeah, I don't have this or that or the other, a lot of wants. But most of the time our needs are provided, whether it's food, clothing, shelter. I've not missed a meal. Most people haven't missed a meal. So I think you first have to start there. What are you thankful and grateful for? And I think coming into this holiday season around Thanksgiving, it's really crucial to really count our blessings and look at the things we do have versus we don't. Because if we focus on what we don't have, that'll be a spiraling whirlpool that will suck you in and drain you emotionally, spiritually, physically, versus really sitting back and being thankful. I'm not real excited that Renee's dealing with cancer right now. My fiance getting married on the 22nd, but I am excited that we are deeper than we've ever been. And I'm most excited about actually having a life partner that knows everything about me, good, bad, ugly. So there's always goodness, even in struggle. So don't lose hope. And what you got to do is you got to throw out life jackets in life. And, you want to teach people how to swim. You don't want to just always save them. But sometimes you might need to open up your wallet too and help people. And, we're so blessed, versus other parts of the world. And yet we take it for granted. Yeah. So just really, look at and be thankful for what we do have versus we don't have, because, life is short. And I know that seems like a cliche, but, really what turbocharged me taking my health as a priority was a good friend of mine with kidney disease at 47. I'm like, man, it's fragile. And only God knows how long we've got. So why don't we make the best of what we've got? And, plan long term, but really think about day in and day out. How can I be a better steward of what I'm given? How can I pay it forward to others as I do get on my feet, and not wallow in this self-pity or blame, excuses, and denial, but play above the line with ownership, accountability, and responsibility.
Wow. Dude, that might be the best answer I've ever had to that question. That was solid. That was good. Dude, you're a good guy, and I really genuinely appreciate you coming on and taking the time and sharing your story. You shared some very personal things, and I think that actually is gonna help people, man. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and if any of you out there feel like that the lie that comes across your table that your life isn't worth anything, you reach out to me, and I'll remind you that it is, because you were created not for a failure, a life of failure, but for a life that is abundant. And doesn't necessarily mean you'll be rich, but a life of abundance, meaning, you'll look at it through a different lens when you have the right lens. So don't take that lie.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Love it, man. You're awesome, Jack. Everybody on here, make sure you send Jack a friend request. I don't know if you're at the 5,000 limit or not, but, send him a request. Follow him on Facebook. Follow him everywhere you can. So, Jack, thank you very, very much, man. I really appreciate you. Love you like a brother, man. You're a good dude.
Love you too, Ken.
All
have
right.
a great day.
Hey, thank you so much. Don't hang up, Jack. Everybody have an awesome day, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.